Baby Lyssa was a tough, sassy teen who could hang with the big boys and more than hold her own if you were a fan of Dog the Bounty Hunter. However, Lyssa Chapman's life didn't simply slow down after the program ended, rather, it completely changed. We're discussing arrests, splits, situations that made headlines, and a stunning metamorphosis that nobody anticipated. She was perceived by some as fading into the background. She was actually rebuilding. And now, she's back in the news for more unrelated reasons than bounty seeking. I'm curious about her current whereabouts and activities. Stay tuned, because this is not your typical comeback story. You see, Lyssa's life didn't exactly get off to the best start. Shortly after she was born, her parents divorced, and the early split had an impact. Lyssa simply wanted two parents who could be in the same room together without destroying each other, whereas most young girls were playing home and dreaming about ideal families. She moved in with her dad in Denver after the breakup, although they weren't by themselves. A lot of the parenting was done by her 5-year-old sister, Barbara. There was a lot of crime and drug use in their neighborhood. However, the most of the trouble was avoided since Dog's name had weight. Her father was always surrounded by women, and frequently preoccupied with his job. But Lyssa still had a deep connection to him. Even though her home life didn't always reflect that, she still saw herself as a daddy's girl. When she was 6, everything changed, and the family relocated to Hawaii. Lyssa found island life to be a strange combination of hardship and brightness. They all tried to make it work while crowded into a small Honolulu studio apartment. However, her father had a knack for making exceptional occasions, such as when he rented a fancy automobile, took them around the city, and distributed candies as if they were in a parade. Yes, it was chaotic, but it was also something a child could cling to. However, those times did not negate the more sinister ones. Lyssa was frequently left in her siblings' care when her substance abuse worsened. That included spending a lot of time alone yourself with a TV, a collection of adult-rated films, and no one checking in. She later acknowledged that she was unsure of what normal actually meant after growing up in such an environment. It took her a long time and many painful experiences to begin to understand what good relationships should look like. And the reality was far more nuanced for those who believed Lyssa and her father had always had a close relationship. She made a severe accusation against him at the age of 11, claiming that he had abused her. Years later, she clarified that she had been assaulted by someone connected to him rather than by him, but she just wanted to get away at the time. She was unable to cope with the tension, drugs, and continual fighting in that home with Dog and Beth. Things weren't exactly easy when she relocated to Alaska to live with her mother. Her mother was struggling, particularly with alcohol. For Lyssa, however, it seemed like a more subdued form of mayhem. She had friends, school, and for the first time a feeling of direction. She had made up her mind not to return. Lyssa subsequently stated that her mother's feelings against Dog were likely the primary reason why she believed her claims against him at first. However, Lyssa was dealing with a completely different reality than the majority of children her age, who were thinking about school dances. She discovered she was pregnant at the age of 14. The day after Lyssa's 15th birthday, her daughter, Abby May, was born. A man in his 20s who would later enter a guilty plea to statutory rape was the baby's father. It was a painful turning point that prematurely ended her childhood. Although Lyssa was only 18, she had years of experience as a mom by the time she appeared on her father's reality show in 2005. Being a teenage mother was difficult, particularly since there was no true support network. She had a tense relationship with her own mother. Lyssa and her newborn daughter were left alone in a caravan after her mother moved in with a lover after the baby was born, and she was also told to pay $500 in rent. Her relationship with her father, Dwayne "Dog" Chapman, wasn't much better, and she was struggling to make ends meet with just the money she earned from babysitting. She really had no one to rely on at that moment. She talked candidly about it at one point, stating that she genuinely thought she had no future. She was struggling day by day with her little daughter in Alaska, broke and overburdened. The show had already begun broadcasting when she eventually joined the Dog the Bounty Hunter crew. Lyssa had never even watched it, but most people would likely binge watch a few episodes to become acquainted. In Alaska, her family did not have access to television. The cameras were a total surprise when she got to Hawaii to shoot season 2. In order to celebrate her return after a 6-year absence, the producers gave the episode the title Babies Back in Town. She was attempting to get back in touch with her father by that point, thinking that perhaps she could try again at that aspect of her life. Later on, she talked about how her perspective had changed. She was beginning to regain her sense of control. However, a controversy shook the show shortly after. In 2007, the show was taken off the air because Dog was caught on tape spewing racist remarks. It returned the following year and persisted for a while, but it served as a reminder that there were drawbacks to being in the public eye. Lyssa told her story in a very different way in 2013. She published Walking on Eggshells, a book on finding bravery and resilience in the face of adversity. She claimed that people's repeated comments about how unreal her life was gave her the idea. She reasoned that it was worthwhile to share her tale if it could encourage or assist someone else. She made it happen with the support of a large publication. She talked candidly about an abusive relationship she had been in for years in her book. It started out quietly, with rough pushes and grabs, but it grew more intense with time. The assault continued throughout her pregnancy and the early years of parenting her children. It almost cost her life one day. He grabbed her by the neck and threw her to the ground during a furious fight. She believed it to be the end at that moment. However, something changed. She fled after packing up her 2 girls, who were just 3 and 11 years old at the time. The path ahead was not a simple one. Getting him out of the house, getting a divorce, and starting over took months. Lyssa discussed the complexity of that type of love and said she didn't hate him despite everything. She claimed that it was more akin to loving someone who suffers from addiction or a serious issue that is unfixable. She had to acknowledge that healing him wasn't her responsibility, and that sometimes letting go is a necessary part of true love. Following the conclusion of the reality show, Lyssa remained visible. She started working on a new show that helped teen mothers find employment, delivering assistance and practical direction. She believed that teens were constantly being told about sex, and that when they were pregnant, they were either chastised by society or made the news. She wished to present something genuine and cut through all of that. She later gave more details regarding the concept. She was in talks with MTV and had teamed with Bunim Murray. The idea was to explore the lives of adolescent mothers and document the challenges they faced. However, the episode never aired since the scheduling was off. However, Lyssa did not completely disappear from the screen. She appeared in a few Dog and Beth episodes, and as a guest on Hawaii 5-0 in 2014. Her father, Dwayne, and stepmother, Beth, have a spin-off show called On the Hunt. However, she then revealed on the Rumor Mill podcast that she no longer felt the same connection to reality TV. If she were to come back, it would have to be for a legitimate cause, something more akin to a documentary, or anything that had actual significance. Life has been a combination of sadness and personal development away from work. Lyssa claimed that as she grew older, she began to view her father in a different light, and realized that Dwayne had done his best to raise her. Particularly before Beth was diagnosed with illness in 2017, the father-daughter bond remained strong. A checkup showed that Beth had stage 2 throat cancer, which was the cause of her recurrent cough. She was resolved to fight despite such information. During interviews at the moment, Dwayne was visibly scared and frantically trying to keep her safe. Beth had surgery. He briefly appeared to be recovering, but in 2018, the disease returned with a vengeance. In the TV show Dog and Beth Fight of Their Lives, they talked candidly about her struggle. Beth and Lyssa's relationship became strained at about the same time. According to Beth, Lyssa ignored her on Mother's Day in 2019 to start their dispute. After that, social media became chaotic. Beth referred to Lyssa as unsuitable. Lyssa clapped back, stating that she was done interacting and that she doesn't deal with bullshit. Supporters also joined in, with some criticizing Lyssa and others protecting her. Lyssa didn't mince words, yelling at detractors and stating unequivocally that she wasn't interested in what other people thought. Beth decided to maintain her emphasis on the good despite all of that public back and forth, particularly Gary D., her son, whom she shared with Dwayne. She posted about him in May 2019, and even had a light-hearted conversation with Dog that made her feel better. By the way, Gary D. has been pursuing a career in bounty hunting, carrying on the family tradition. Like Beth, Lyssa also managed to find her center. She remarked on how much she enjoyed watching TV, particularly Naked and Afraid, and even mentioned that her favorite character was Dustin Duck Campbell. Then the most difficult part arrived. Beth was only 51 when she died in 2019. It was 5:32 a.m. in Hawaii, Beth's typical time to walk Coco Head, according to the tragic news that Dwayne posted online. However, she took a different route that day. Following the Waikiki Memorial, Lyssa spoke her homage. She wrote that she was utterly stunned after sharing a picture of her daughter strolling hand in hand with Dwayne. She recalled Beth on Twitter by sharing an old video of the two of them playing tricks on Dog and Tim, claiming that they used to run the guys. Dwayne thereafter made an effort to clarify the alleged conflict. He claimed that it was simply the type of conflict that can arise between strong-willed women, and wasn't nearly as dramatic as people made it up to be. It wasn't about last-minute reconciliations or sympathy, he said. Before Beth died, they had truly reconciled. However, things changed in January 2020, when Lyssa Chapman learnt that her father, Dwayne "Dog" Chapman, had begun dating only 6 months after Beth's passing. She didn't mince words. His recent girlfriend, according to reports, Moon Angel, who had even dated one of Lyssa's siblings, had worked as Beth's secretary for more than 20 years. Lyssa was not pleased with that. She turned to social media to doubt Moon's intentions and accuse her of taking Beth's position too soon, especially considering how close she had been to the family for such a long time. When Dog proposed to Moon live on television during the Dr. Oz show, things became heated. Although there was a lot of drama, tears and surprises throughout the moment, insiders claimed that Moon became overwhelmed by the attention and feelings behind the scenes. Lyssa continued to speak throughout the interim. Lyssa responded sharply to a follower's attempt to justify Dog's need for company, making it obvious that she didn't buy it. At about the same time, Lyssa herself got into some severe problems. She was detained in Hawaii in January 2020 on charges of harassment and resisting arrest. She gave The Sun her version of events, stating that they had both been drinking and that it began with a furious quarrel with her girlfriend. She said the officers were far too forceful and that nothing violent happened. However, court records presented a more nuanced picture, claiming that she made unwelcome contact with cops twice, which was sufficient to result in a harassment prosecution against her a month later. Lyssa called the entire situation painful and embarrassing for her family, and vowed to fight the allegations, even going so far as to lodge a complaint against the police. However, despite all of that chaos, she and Dog's relationship began to improve. Lyssa shared a family reunion photo from Hawaii in March of that year, stating that it was nice to get back in touch. Then, in May 2020, Dog became engaged once more, this time to Francie Frayne, and Lyssa not only accepted but encouraged it. She expressed her desire to move on by giving Francie a heartfelt shout-out on Instagram. Later, Dog and Francie spoke with Entertainment Tonight about how their shared tragedy strengthened their relationship. Unaware that Francie's husband had also lately passed away, Dog had called her home. Their bond became stronger from there. It developed into something more as they supported one another with the grief of losing Beth and Bob. Dog married Francie in 2021, but their nuptials weren't without turmoil. Bonnie and Cecily, two of Dog's daughters, were not invited. They told the reporters they thought it was because they looked too much like Beth to Dog. Bonnie even made grave claims in public, claiming that Dog had not changed from his previous behavior, and using racist and homophobic slurs throughout filming. Lyssa, however, supported her father. In addition to attending the wedding, she openly endorsed his relationship by stating that they were happy together, and expressing the desire that the rest of the family would experience the same tranquilly. Lyssa seems to be clinging to the notion of healing, both with her father and with herself. for better or worse. She then shared a personal milestone, 1.5 years sober, on Facebook in December 2022. However, it had not been a simple journey. Growing up, Lyssa seen her family being torn apart by addiction. Her early years were greatly influenced by her mother, Lyssa Ray Britton, who battled substance abuse. Lyssa eventually discovered that she was on the same trajectory, succumbing to substance abuse and alcohol consumption at an early age. 2011 was a very bad year. When she was arrested for causing disturbances, she claimed that after someone had slipped something into her drink, she found herself lost and confused in the middle of the night on the street. Sobriety wasn't easy. Even after that arrest, she continued to drink intermittently for years. However, something finally clicked in 2021. Because she had been drinking, Lyssa was unable to drive to the vet when her dog became ill. She had an epiphany while she was in that waiting area, tipsy and with her ailing dog by her side. What if this was my child? She wondered. She was strongly prompted to begin those first 30 days sober by that query. The advancements simply continued from that point on. She acknowledged that the holidays were difficult when she reached the 18-month mark in late 2022, but she was committed to staying on course. Lyssa was in a difficult situation with her father, Dwayne "Dog" Chapman, at about the same time. Dog made some offensive comments, including threats of violence towards Dylan Mulvaney and the LGBTQ+ community during a Facebook livestream. The backlash quickly became apparent, particularly considering that Lyssa herself is a member of that community. Lyssa publicly apologized to Dylan and the transgender community following the livestream. She claimed that the father she grew up with wasn't reflected in those remarks, and she was unable to provide an explanation for his actions. She admitted to being concerned, particularly about the type of media her father was recently consuming, but she still loved him. Bonnie, her sister, also voiced her opinion, calling Dog's remarks horrible. Despite her obvious disappointment, Lyssa continued to support her father. She expressed to her admirers her sincere belief that he had always supported and loved her. Furthermore, Lyssa reacted negatively to claims that Dog was racist or homophobic. She said her sisters were surrounding themselves with old acquaintances and twisting the facts, who never cared about what was best for the family. Lyssa remained rooted in her own life throughout it all. She had previously been married to Beau Galante, with whom she had a daughter named Madeline. Despite the short lifespan of that marriage, Lyssa continued to believe in love. She married Leanna in a modest beach wedding in Hawaii in 2022 after they first met in 2016. It was elegant and uncomplicated. Lyssa's uncle David is officiating, and there are only a few close relatives there. The ocean is roaring beneath them. Her new in-laws were present, as were her kids, Madeline and Abby. Despite acknowledging that she didn't always think she deserved this type of joy, Lyssa described it as a dream day and said she felt fortunate and incredibly loved. Lyssa was wearing a flowing maxi dress, and both women were dressed in white. They wore vibrant tropical flower crowns, while Leanna was dressed in shorts and a button-down shirt. After the wedding, Leanna shared a statement on social media expressing her continued amazement at being able to spend the rest of her life with Lyssa. Lyssa made it apparent that Dog's absence from the wedding was not due to a fight. Even throughout the ceremony, he had been talking to her on the phone all morning. "I couldn't go back to Hawaii just yet," he told People magazine. Without Beth, it was still too difficult. Nevertheless, Lyssa claimed that he had always showed affection for her and her happiness. In 2024, Lyssa shocked her fans by making a passing reference to a potential return. She declared that she was going to retake her bail license exam and shared an old bounty hunting photo. Support from fans lighted up the comments. She clarified that she let her license expire even though she had it when she worked on the show with her dad. She made it apparent that the Chapman name isn't finished yet, regardless of whether she plans to return to bounty hunting full-time or simply remain prepared. To paint a complete picture, Lyssa has accepted a completely new phase of her life. She now creates material and is an OnlyFans creator. As 2025 arrived, she began the year with a carousel of coastal photos, looking confident, at ease, and drenched in sunlight. She flaunted her floral bikini, her tribal shoulder tattoo, and even a few peaceful moments with rainbows and chickens. Supporters showered the remarks, praising Lyssa's unabashed self-expression and the enthusiasm she exuded. Lyssa's tale is constantly changing, from a difficult beginning to sobriety milestones, from public family conflicts to finding love, from bounty hunting to beach vibes. And if she has demonstrated anything, it is that second chances are not just genuine, but also potent.